Are you ready for a whole new game inside of Star Rail? If this isn't peak gameplay, I don't know what is. Hey, Guoba here. Today we have an absolute beast of a game mode to discuss. The Swarm Disaster game mode for the Simulator universe. It's a new permanent addition to the Simulator universe, but honestly feels bigger than the base universe game mode itself. And it is so fun. Herta, alongside her Genius Society members, figured out a way to simulate the past, before the death of the Eon of Propagation, Teaseronth. Tons of new curios, blessings, events appear on top of a whole new usable path, the Propagation Path, which has also been added to the regular Simulator universe. In this mode, old paths are revamped and have brand new features and mechanics to work around, like being able to have secondary paths buff your resonance. We have a new buff tree separate from regular Simulator universe, and you play on a map now with various dice to control your path, all leading towards beating the newest boss, the Swarm True Stings. So we'll explain the game mode in depth, exactly how the boss works and how to beat it, how the new buff system works, as well as each path one by one, including the new Propagation Path. This game mode is very difficult at the start since we don't keep the regular buff tree. So just like Simulated Universe was before we invested resources and got buffs. Stick in for the ride if you want to know everything about this event, or choose a specific path in the timestamps to learn more about them. And before we start, maybe consider subscribing. It helps me out a lot, and this guide took a lot of work. Anyway, let's begin. The Swarm Disaster mode plays out on a randomly generated map of hexagonal tiles. Your job is to make your way through various different tiles and clear the bosses at the end. There are 3 planes, or stages, to each run, all with their own maps. The first is smaller and gets you started, the second is a large plane and is where you'll make most of your decisions, and the third is a shorter map leading you to the Swarm boss. The first and second planes will be where your path mechanic takes effect, and the bosses of these 2 planes will modify the final Swarm boss, which we'll see more in the boss section. To begin, you must choose a path, just like usual. You won't have them all unlocked immediately, and you will have the 7 standard paths, with the final Propagation Path locked behind the main story. Every path has their normal resonance, but they also now have 2 interplay resonances. Gaining 3 blessings of the secondary resonance path's type will grant you this interplay resonance and grant your power new buffs. Each path also now has 2 big effects. They each have a dimension effect which changes the first and second planes of the run. They then have a continuous effect introducing new mechanics which will grant you buffs or change the map. They are all very different and unique and require strategy. I'll explain each path in depth in their own section. Once you've picked your path, you will get the usual 3 choices of Trailblaze blessings, except the mode has new choices, like granting you more curios or an error code curio for example. Then, once you're in, it's time to tackle the game mode. To progress, you clear the domain and then you roll a die. This die changes depending on your path and you will have lots of different effects, 5 to 6 per path. The die's roll will determine the effect on your next move and have 3 tiers of effects. It could be something like transforming a tile on the map, or teleporting to a tile, or even absorbing all tiles and transforming them into blank ones. Every path's die, except for Nihility, also has an in-game buff for the next battle, all based on your path. If you don't like your current effect, you can reroll, and events and curios will give you more rerolls. Later on you can even gain cheats, and these let you select the die effect that you want. Finally, you can even exchange your rolled effect for cosmic fragments if you have no use for it. So once you've got your effect, you can now move along the map. You select a tile and you can move to any adjacent tile on the right side of your current tile. Sometimes you'll have effects to place on the board before you can move. Any tile you pass by on the left will collapse, and you can't go backwards, so be smart about it. Finally, there is a countdown mechanic. You start with a certain amount of turns and every move will drop it by 1. You want to get to the 3rd boss quite quickly. When you reach 0 turns, the planar disarray effect will be triggered, enhancing all enemies. Whenever you move after this has been activated, this effect will gain a level. It will make the enemies tankier, faster, and do more damage per level. Getting this effect isn't too bad early, but the high levels will doom your run, so strategic planning is a must for this mode. So the game doesn't just have your regular Simulator universe nodes, it expands greatly. So let's go through the list. Blank tiles are first and will do literally nothing. They appear from certain effects, mostly the Nihility Path's die. Combat tiles are your regular Simulator universe ones. You defeat a number of enemies and receive blessings on each kill. Elite tiles are like the elites in Simulator universe, except you can fight many throughout your journey before you even approach the current plane's boss. Defeating them grants you a chance of higher rarity blessings. Boss tiles are at the end of each plane's map on the right. They are the strongest enemy, and at high difficulties with little buffs, elites and bosses can be deadlier than Memory of Chaos. Don't get overconfident even if they're not the final boss. Occurrence tiles are just like in the regular mode, granting you a random event and then outcome based on your luck and decisions. Reward tiles, however, are new. They have RNG events just like occurrences, but are all going to benefit you in some way or another. No more aha laughing at you. They even have new versions of the old occurrences. In this game mode, a brand new effect also takes places in occurrences and reward nodes too. Depending on your path, you may have a brand new option to pick. These can change the occurrence drastically and are very fun. Next, we have adventure tiles. They are either a jar smashing adventure, where you have to break 30 destructible objects in a time limit, or a trotter catching event, where you have to attack all trotters before they escape. AoE attacking enemies, or a Lunae dashing through everything, is a very good way to beat them. If you don't beat the event, you get some fragments, but if you beat the missions, you'll get additional rewards. The first tier grants you a blessing, and the second usually a curio. Respite tiles are tiles before bosses, where you'll meet up with Herta, just like in regular SU. Transaction tiles are no longer occurrences here, you'll instead be met with Screwlum and Herta with a new shop. Screwlum sells blessings, even 3-star ones, and Herta sells curios. You can also buy multiple of them. They are quite pricey, but there are ways to reduce it, and there are a lot of ways to get cosmic fragments. Now, the Swarm disaster wouldn't be complete without the Swarm itself. On the map, there will be purpley tiles. There are Swarm variants of combat tiles where you'll fight the True Stings enemy. There are Swarm variants of occurrences too, where you'll be able to gain propagation blessings, even without it being unlocked. And of course, there's a Swarm boss tile, which is in the final plane. Fighting swarms and entering swarm occurrences will increase the swarm's alertness. If you alert them enough, a surprise invasion will happen, and swarm tiles will be summoned and replace some existing tiles. Finally, there are beacons. Beacons are little effects in the bottom right of nodes. They modify the nodes. Enhanced beacons will make the enemies in the domain stronger, but all blessing rewards will be enhanced too. Mutation beacons will make enemies become errors, and you will gain more cosmic fragments upon winning. Then you have 2 trotter beacons, a blessing and curio one. The domain will now have a trot on top, and defeating them will grant you their respective bonus reward. If you don't land on them though, they will teleport and swap places with a random domain, running away from you. And if you pass them and they collapse, well, goodbye piggy. So with that knowledge, you can go through the map and make your way to the bosses. Plane 1 will have a strong version of regular elites, and Plane 2 will have a boss from Simulated Universe Worlds 3 to 7, like Kafka or Cocolia. You can pick from 2, and they'll modify the final Swarm boss's fight. First plane's boss decides the third weakness of the Swarm boss. The second plane's boss decides an additional effect, like reducing speed or applying dots to the enemy. So the boss is a big bug, and they are very difficult if you don't know what you're doing. Can't wait for them to be a Memory of Chaos. Anyway, they have 2 set weaknesses, Quantum and Imaginary always, and the third depends on the weakness you chose in the first plane. Now this bug is a creation of the Eon of Propagation, and will thus split itself depending on the phase. It will spawn smaller juvenile stings, a lesser sting, or even a copy of itself. The boss itself does great damage already, but them and their stings apply stacks of very hard hitting wind shears in AoE or single target. The boss will also detonate these wind shears. So cleansing or big shielding is mandatory to survive. When they die however, they will explode and do a large amount of damage to all their allies, applying a vulnerability debuff on top. So killing enemies will frequently start a chain of bugs dying, and you want this debuff on the main boss to help kill it. With that said, let's review the 3 phases this boss has. Phase 1 will make the boss generate 2 juvenile stings. They will then multiply themselves if they are not killed, up to 5 enemies on the board. Killing them is both beneficial for your survival and for granting you on-kill effects. Do not let these small bugs repeatedly apply wind shear and detonate them. You will die. You want to kill the small mobs to avoid dying and then delete the boss, or do both at the same time. Phase 2 will summon another 2 juvenile stings, as well as an orange variant, a lesser sting. This variant must be eliminated immediately, as it will explode into your team and has a very high chance of inflicting outrage on the target and adjacent ones, which means they act on their own. Your sustain being outraged is usually game over for the run. The main boss also now has a countdown charging ultimate move that will one-shot weaker members of your team, as well as remove any weakness break and control effects on all true stings. So you need to break the boss and continue killing the small mobs on top of damaging the boss. Phase 3 will now make the boss split themselves, so there are now 2 boss-like entities with the same kit. The secondary boss will now summon smaller stings, just like Phase 2. So you have a board of 5 bugs, and you need enough bug poison in your spray can to end them all before they stack up and kill you. Both bosses have the same charge attack, and both will keep summoning smaller true stings. Remember that the bugs will do large damage and apply vulnerability on death, so chain killing is very effective. To beat this boss, Abundance is great to remove the win share stacking and to keep your team alive. You can also bunker up with stalls and heavy CC with something like the Remembrance Path. What I enjoy personally is the hunt or Propagation Path and just going absolutely crazy with damage in a battle of who kills who first. The constant bugs spawning and then killing them with Hunt Blessings stacked means you can gain tons of additional turns and energy. You should know that the max difficulty boss has so much health, and even the smallest things do too. This is a big DPS check and will require good use of your path's stacked effect, strategy, buffs, and units to defeat. So if you've now tried tackling the boss and lost completely, that could be because of lack of buffs. By completing various Path Strider missions during your adventures, you'll gain points for the 7 regular paths. A mission, for example, can be to collect 750 cosmic fragments in one run. It is a tree-based system, and so later missions will require you to complete multiple previous ones first. You can run these at weaker difficulties though, and if a higher difficulty is required, it will tell you. The path points from completing these missions will then accumulate and grant buffs based on milestones. These buffs will take effect every run, even if you don't use the path they're based on. They are all based on the path's effects too, like Hunt granting speed and crit rate. They can also modify your run at certain milestones, like Destruction nearly one-shotting the first 4 battles you do if you pass the first plane in your previous challenge. So gaining these buffs is instrumental to victory, and beating max difficulty won't be possible for most players without them. Have fun and enjoy all the new effects and modes and paths, but make sure to keep an eye on the missions and see if you can complete them at the same time. So you know how to start a playthrough, you know how to progress, and you know how to beat the boss and how to gain buffs. Now all that's left is to explain the new ways paths work in the Swarm Disaster game mode. We will explain their core gameplay mechanics, how to use them, and give a general consensus of how good they are and their strategies. Let's go in order. The first is Preservation. Preservation and its die bases itself on the Cornerstone mechanic. It will turn domains into Cornerstone domains, preserving them unless you enter them. When you enter a boss at the end of a plane, you will gain permanent shield strength based on the amount of Cornerstone domains present. You also gain 1 blessing to choose from for each different type of domain that has Cornerstone applied to it. So you want to make your way through the planes and place your Cornerstones strategically whilst avoiding entering them, maximize your buffs and blessings. Path is pretty safe due to its shields and good for auto battle in the lower difficulties, but high difficulties have a large HP spike and your normal giant shield nukes will barely hurt the bosses. The damage is nice for adds though, but you'll need blessings of other paths on top if you want to win with Preservation. Luckily you can gain so many more blessings than usual in this game mode. Shepard's shields with or without Fire MC on top allows for lots of shields that should keep you safe. Preservation has 2 new interplay resonances, unlocked by obtaining Nihility and Remembrance blessings on top of the usual Preservation ones. The Nihility one applies a massive HP and shield cap bleed dot effect, and the Remembrance bonus gives more damage to frozen enemies. Speaking of Remembrance, it's the next path, and bases itself on the Recollection effect. It will copy domains and apply Recollection, and entering one of these domains will grant you permanently stacking effect hit rate. So maybe those 250 effect hit rate needs on Himiko aren't too bad. You want to copy high value domains as much as possible, allowing you to gain back-to-back nodes full of blessings and curios. This path is very safe as you can stall for years, but very slow damage wise until you unlock the Dissociation effect. You can stack buffs to hard CC the Swarm Disaster as they are not freeze resistant like Acolia. Freezing the true sting enemies will prevent them splitting as well as prevent their high damage, and since you can freeze with the path itself, you don't even need to bring ice characters. Though a stronger user of this path is for example March 7th. When combined with Hunt and Destruction blessings, the Remembrance Resonation power gains potent new effects, like reducing enemy damage resistance by a ton. The Nihility Path is an interesting one, kind of. It bases itself around the blank domains in the game mode. You'll be transforming rows of domains into blank ones, and traversing them will increase the dot damage of all allies by a percentage. The die's effects will give you bonuses and transform types of tiles into blank ones. What makes it interesting though is that once you've done that for all tiles in a plane, you then only have 2 faces of the die left, a golden side or a blue side. The golden side can thus be rolled frequently and will transform your next blank tile into a reward one, so you can effectively have back-to-back rewards non-stop, letting you stack up massive buffs for the boss fights, instead of relying on RNG occurrences and combats. This path is of course tailor-made to dot units, but you are able to use other units with its various dot application effects. Kafka is insane with this. It's also really good for survivability once you've stacked the attack debuff effects on top of the healing effects. The Nihility Path has interplay resonances with Hunt for speed, and Propagation, which allows basics to detonate the resonance's dots for some insane damage. The Abundance is next. It has a more restrictive progression than the rest, but it's still pretty interesting. It is based on the Mercy effect. Domains will have this applied to them from the Dimension effect as well as the Dies effect. When using this path, the countdown node drops by 3 each move instead of 1, which is very dangerous. However, if you land on a Mercy tile, you instead add 1 to the turn counter instead of losing any turns. On top of that, each turn left on the countdown gives you a stacking outgoing healing boost percentage. You want to apply Mercy to a lot of domains, allowing for a way longer route to the boss. It will take longer, but you'll be able to complete many more nodes than the rest of the paths, due to the countdown being irrelevant if used right. In combat and against the swarm, this path is amazing to remove the wind shears. It's also great for autoplay with the automatic resonance activations. It's very safe provided the boss doesn't one-shot you, so in combination with the shield, it's practically immortality. A key user of this path is someone like Blade. Comboing it with Nihility grants you a better time versus the Swarm too with its break effect buffs, and Propagation allows for skill point generation. The Hunt is all about pigs, literally. You hunt trotters to succeed, and hopefully Nummy doesn't hear of this. Your Dimension effect and die will summon or trap trotters or let you teleport to them. Not only do trotters give great bonus rewards to any path, any trotter defeated with the Hunt path gives all allies a permanent stacking 30% crit damage. This even works for the 3 trotter occurrence and means bacon is back on the menu. You want to go and clear high value domains on top of maximizing trotter hunting. Don't just go for trotters for the crit damage if it will lose you a big reward. The 2 teleports from the Hunt's die is very strong for fast clears as well as avoiding unwanted domains or swarms. It can even save you too if the planar disarray buff is getting too strong. This playstyle is high risk, high reward. You kill the enemy or you will die. And being faster than Sonic has its downsides. For example, if you have 5 wind shears from True Stings about to explode you on your next turn. So you have to play around the pure DPS playstyle or bring double sustain like my cowardly self. This is one of my favorite paths though, and a unit like Imbibitor Lunae excels with this on top of your regular Hunt carries. Comboing this with Abundance grants you healing on resonance kills, and Elation grants you speed. We next have Destruction. Destruction is all about combat tiles. You'll be converting tiles into combat ones or elite ones, and even enhancing them, as well as gaining benefits for fighting. For example, the permanent 8% stacking damage percent buff for every individual battle won. You want to focus on spamming combats for great rewards, and enhancing elites for enhanced level 3 blessing potential. Make sure to not do too many combats though before the planar disarray gets you. The resonance power, like Preservation, is weaker in later difficulties, but it's still nice for weaker enemies, and Destruction is still a great survivability path once you get the 3-star blessings. You'll be very tanky and you'll have a lot of effect resistance with the right setup. You do want to be low HP though for max damage, which is very scary in combination with the insane damage output that the True Stings boss can unleash, on top of the various wind shear effects. This path excels with bruiser units and small sustain units like Fire MC. Our final regular path is Elation, and of course it's all about random as well as the happiness effect. You'll be able to apply the happiness effect to domains, randomizing said domain. This can be anything and has even used effects from other paths, like cloning it to adjacent tiles using the Remembrance Path effect. You can even transform the Respite tile, which isn't a great idea, but there you go. For every domain you pass through as well, follow-up attack damage dealt by allies will have a random stat bonus increase. It's classic AHA trolling. So you don't really need strategy, but one thing you can do strategically is transform low value tiles and hope you get some big rewards out of it. This is a bunch of fun, and with a follow-up user like Clara on board, you will be deleting enemies. The 3-star blessings are very strong, and you can even use any DPS, provided you have the right blessings that cheat the system. To further randomize the path, the interplays will have a chance to freeze enemies, or dispel debuffs on allies when dealing damage. Now finally we have Propagation, the path of Tazeronth, where the tragedy is depicted in On the Fall of a Neon. You unlock it after completing all chapters in the game mode story. It is all about basic attacks and skill point consumption or restoration. The core mechanic, like Dewdrop for Abundance or Aftertaste for Elation, is the Spore mechanic. Spores will be applied to enemies in various ways and burst at a certain count from basic attacks, dealing large wind damage and spreading to another enemy afterwards. So you'll be consuming skill points and applying spores for massive damage and buffs your basic attacks. This is tailor-made for basic attack users like Blade, but especially ones with skill spams like Lunae and Xing Shui. The resonance power will grant strong buffs, skill points, and push forward a selected ally. It's pretty OP. To discover more and all the blessings though, it's up to you to find them. I won't be spoiling it. As for the Swarm Disaster mode though, the Propagation Path is all about transforming domains into swarm domains. So not only will you be able to max out the Path's resonance and get all the blessings you need, you'll also gain the Path's continuous buff, which is granted for every swarm domain you enter, and you'll be gaining a permanent stacking 20% basic attack damage buff. Finally, the golden die is insane for farming and in general. You can consume all swarm domains on the map at once, allowing you to gain many propagation blessings at once and then just teleport to the boss. This path on Lunae is pretty damn solid for beating the swarm boss. On top of your already massive basic attack damage with all the buffs, the spore spreading to all the bugs means they die quite frequently and start stacking on the boss for a lot of damage. Combined with E2, just like with Hunt but even more so, you'll be taking about 50 turns before the enemy acts. Combined with Hunt, it's even more fun. Comboing this path with Preservation Blessings grants shields from the Resonance power, and Destruction grants a damage nullifier. These two make the ally taking lots of turns gain a bit of safety, which is really nice. So that's all for my complete guide on the Swarm Disaster event. I hope you enjoy it, and I know I'll be testing out cool comps for a long time to come. I do hope more paths are introduced and more events in the long run, and I would definitely have to try my new pulled units on them when I get the chance. Let me know what you're going to use in this game mode in the comments, and if you've beaten the max difficulty yet. Thanks to all my amazing members, thanks for watching, and have a Guoba day.